Ladies and gentlemen, there will come a moment when money begins to flow into your life, not from hustle, not from luck, but from heaven itself. And when it does, you must remember this truth: not every blessing is meant to be broadcast. The loudest people often lose what they brag about, but those who stay quiet, stay wise, and stay humble, they keep what others pray for. Because when money comes from God, it's not given to make you louder. It's given to make you smarter, calmer, and untouchable. And when that wholeness begins to grow within you, something subtle but powerful changes. You stop chasing, you stop grasping, you begin to walk differently, calm, steady, grounded in something that cannot be shaken. Because now you understand that wealth is not measured by what sits in your account, but by what sits in your heart. The man who has peace is wealthier than the man with a fortune he cannot rest beside. When the source of your abundance is divine, it doesn't just fill your hands, it heals your spirit. You start seeing the divine fingerprints in every opportunity, every connection, every unexpected open door. You realize that what seemed like coincidence was providence. That conversation that led to a contract, that delay that redirected you toward a better path, none of it was random. And once you understand that, your gratitude deepens. Gratitude becomes your new rhythm. You stop asking for more and begin thanking for what is already here. That simple shift, thankfulness over demand, keeps the flow of blessings alive, because nothing multiplies under complaint, but everything expands under appreciation. When money comes from God, it's not meant to change your identity. It's meant to reveal it. The money only amplifies who you already are. If you were kind, you'll become more generous. If you were bitter, you'll become more arrogant. That's why character matters more than cash. Wealth in the hands of the wise becomes a tool of impact. Wealth in the hands of the proud becomes a mirror reflecting emptiness. You don't need to prove what you have. You need to prove what you can do with it. The quiet power of divine prosperity is that it strengthens your sense of purpose. Suddenly, you start seeing your success as a responsibility. You begin to recognize that there are people tied to your obedience, lives connected to your stewardship. You understand that your blessing isn't the finish line. It's the starting point for someone else's breakthrough. When you grasp that truth, you can no longer live carelessly. You move differently. You give differently. You build differently. Many lose what they've been given because they forget this law. The moment you treat what's sacred as ordinary, it begins to fade. The moment you stop honoring the source stops flowing. That's why staying quiet is more than a choice. It's a safeguard. Silence keeps you anchored in humility. It reminds you that your success isn't proof of superiority, it's proof of grace. The more you grow, the more you realize that the loudest people often have the least peace. True power operates quietly. It doesn't need to convince anyone. It simply exists. You'll notice that when your money starts coming from a divine source, it won't arrive through chaos. It will come through clarity. You won't have to manipulate, chase, or deceive. The doors will open naturally, the timing will align, and the path will feel guided, not forced. That's how you know it's from above. And because of that peace, you'll learn to stop competing. You'll stop comparing your journey with others, because you'll understand that their provision was designed for their mission, not yours. The wisdom is in staying in your lane, cultivating your garden, tending your soil. When you were struggling, you probably thought you needed more resources to find peace. But the truth is, peace comes first. When your heart is aligned, when your motives are pure, the provision will follow. Divine wealth doesn't chase noise. It seeks stillness. It moves toward those who can handle it without corruption. The blessing is not for those who shout the loudest. It's for those who can carry it quietly. Sometimes God will withhold the blessing until you are quiet enough to hear Him. Because if he gave it to you while you were still ruled by noise, by ego, by fear, by opinion, you'd lose it trying to prove something that doesn't need proof. But when your heart finally calms, when you no longer need to show anyone anything, that's when he can trust you. That's when the floodgates open. That's when the kind of success that feels weightless, effortless, begins to arrive. And when it does, you'll begin to see why silence was necessary. You'll see that the greatest victories happen in private, the deepest transformations occur in quiet rooms, and the most meaningful wealth doesn't come from effort alone, but from alignment between your purpose and God's will. That's the secret few understand. Divine money is not just earned, it's entrusted. It's not about how smart you are. It's about how surrendered you are. The challenge then becomes staying wise while you're surrounded by noise. The world will try to tempt you to turn your story into a spectacle. They'll tell you to post your progress, to announce every move, to let everyone know how well you're doing. But the moment you seek validation from people, you give them power over your peace. Every time you need applause to feel secure, you lose a piece of your freedom. That's why wisdom teaches you restraint. Restraint is power. There's strength in being underestimated. There's freedom in being unseen. Let your results speak softly and consistently. Let time be your voice. The same people who question you today will tell your story tomorrow. You don't need to convince anyone when God is your witness. You just need to stay faithful, stay disciplined, and stay silent. And remember, wealth isn't the goal, it's the tool. The real goal is mastery. Mastery of your emotions, your habits, your intentions. Because once you master yourself, everything external begins to align naturally. Money becomes just another instrument in your symphony, not the conductor of it. You no longer serve money, money begins to serve you. And that is the true mark of divine wealth. It never owns you, it moves through you. When money comes from God, it teaches you about yourself. It reveals your motives. It exposes your insecurities. It shows you whether you truly trust or if you only believed as long as you were struggling. Many think struggle tests faith, but abundance tests it more. When everything starts working, will you still pray? When opportunities overflow, will you still listen? When you can finally buy anything, will you still value what cannot be bought? That's why divine wealth is not simply about having. It's about handling. The question is never, do you have the blessing? It's, can you carry the blessing without breaking? Some crumble under the weight of success because they never built the foundation to sustain it. They prayed for harvests but ignored character. They wanted elevation but avoided preparation. And when the spotlight came, it revealed their cracks. But those who stayed grounded, those who stayed quiet were able to stand tall when the light hit them because their roots ran deep. Keep your roots deep. Never let your branches grow faster than your foundation. If God has given you increase, it's because He's trusting you with influence. Don't waste it trying to impress those who haven't yet learned the value of patience. Lead with humility, give without expectation, and build with wisdom. What's done in silence today will echo in eternity tomorrow. You'll come to realize that not every blessing is meant to be shared publicly. Some things are sacred, some moments are meant to be hidden between you and the one who gave them, because the moment you expose everything, you invite interpretation, and interpretation brings distraction. Protect your peace by guarding your blessings. Let them mature in silence before they ever meet the noise of the world. As you walk this path, people will notice your calm. They'll wonder why you don't shout about your success, why you don't flaunt what you've built. But you'll know the answer. You'll know that when money comes from God, it doesn't make you louder. It makes you quieter, because you've learned the secret that only the wise ever discover, that peace is the real profit and wisdom is the true wealth. And so you keep walking, steady, disciplined, grateful. You build quietly, you give generously, you listen more than you speak, because you understand that divine abundance is not about proving your worth to others, it's about proving your obedience to God. Every decision becomes sacred, every investment intentional, every act of kindness a reflection of where your treasure truly lies. You begin to live in a rhythm of grace, unhurried, unbothered, unwavering. You understand that blessings don't come to those who scream the loudest. They come to those who prepare in silence, wait in faith, and act in wisdom. You carry your wealth like a whisper, felt deeply but never shouted. And as you continue to move with that quiet strength, the world will eventually notice something unexplainable about you. They won't see arrogance, they'll see peace. They won't see noise, they'll feel presence. Because that's what happens when money comes from God. It leaves traces of heaven wherever it goes. And when that presence begins to dwell within you, the atmosphere around your life changes. You start to notice that things move differently, not because you're forcing them, but because you're aligned with a rhythm higher than your own. Opportunities that once seemed impossible begin to open quietly, naturally, as if drawn toward the peace you now carry. You no longer chase what belongs to you, it finds its way to you, because divine order doesn't need to shout to make itself known, it simply flows. In that flow, your confidence shifts from loud ambition to quiet assurance. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop seeking permission to succeed. You no longer need validation from those who can't comprehend your vision. You realize that your journey is personal, designed with precision, and not everyone was meant to understand it. That realization brings a freedom money could never buy, the freedom of being content in obedience, not in applause. As your life begins to bear the weight of divine favor, people will talk. Some will admire you. Some will envy you. Some will question how you've come so far so quietly, but you'll understand that this was never about being seen. It was about being sent. You were entrusted, not entitled. You were chosen, not celebrated. And in that realization lies your protection from pride. The moment you think it's about you, you start to lose what was never yours to begin with. Every true blessing comes with a lesson. Some lessons come in the form of delay, others in the form of abundance. Both teach the same truth, that you are a vessel, not the source. You may hold great things, but you do not own them. The hand that gives can also guide, and the hand that guides can also correct. Staying aware of that keeps your spirit steady no matter how high you rise. There will come a time when you'll look back on your life and realize that the most powerful moments were the quiet ones, not the applause, not the recognition, but those nights you wrestled with doubt and chose faith anyway. Those mornings when you gave without being seen, those decisions that no one understood but heaven honored, that's where your true wealth was formed, in the invisible discipline that no one clapped for. Because what is unseen builds the strength to handle what will one day be seen. When your money comes from God, it carries purpose in its DNA. It doesn't just buy, it builds. It doesn't just increase your comfort, it increases your capacity. It's meant to serve, to plant, to repair, to restore. You begin to view money as a language of impact rather than an expression of ego. Every pound, every dollar becomes a seed. And as you plant those seeds wisely, the ground beneath your life becomes fertile with legacy. The irony of divine wealth is that the more you give, the richer you become, not just financially, but spiritually. Giving keeps your heart alive. It reminds you that you were blessed not to hoard, but to help. And every time you release what's in your hand, you make room for something greater to return. The cycle of divine prosperity depends on this flow. Receive in humility, give in generosity, and stay silent in gratitude. There will be seasons when God gives you more than you need, not for luxury, but for leadership. He's showing others through you what's possible when obedience meets faith, but even then, you must remain cautious. Visibility is not the same as victory. Just because people see your success doesn't mean they understand your sacrifice, and that's why humility must grow as your influence expands. Pride seeks to be noticed. Wisdom seeks to be useful. You'll also learn that true wealth attracts both light and shadow. Some will draw near because they are inspired, others because they want to take. Not everyone who celebrates you believes in you. That's why discernment becomes as valuable as discipline. You must guard your circle as carefully as you guard your spirit. Not everyone can walk where divine favor leads you. Some people can handle your struggle, but not your success. Protect your peace, protect your purpose, protect your silence. The quietness of divine wealth is not weakness. It's armor. It shields you from distraction, from pride, from the noise of comparison. The world thrives on noise. It wants to keep you loud, restless, and proving. But when your wealth comes from above, you learn to rest even while you're building. You learn that peace is the foundation of every lasting structure. The storm may roar outside, but inside you remain still. That stillness is your advantage. As your life continues to expand, the temptation to drift from your principles will grow. The higher you go, the thinner the air becomes, and the easier it is to forget the ground you came from. But never forget the prayers that built your path. Never forget the discipline that protected you when no one was watching. Those are the invisible anchors that keep you balanced while others fall. The same humility that carried you to the top will be required to keep you there. Understand that not every opportunity is from God. Some doors open to distract you, not to develop you. That's why you must weigh every opportunity against your purpose. If it leads you away from peace, it's not for you. If it tempts you to compromise your integrity, it's a trap disguised as a blessing. Divine wealth never asks you to betray your values, it reinforces them. It's better to grow slowly in truth than to rise quickly in deception. The greatest test of divine wealth is restraint. You'll be able to do many things, but wisdom will teach you when not to. You'll be capable of buying more, saying more, showing more, but you'll choose less. Because the moment you realize you don't need to prove anything, you gain the kind of power that can't be bought. That is the quiet strength that separates the truly blessed from the merely successful. Those who operate under divine provision know that not everything that glitters is gold. They understand that some things are meant to sparkle only for a moment before they fade. So they build their treasures where time cannot touch them. In character, in faith, in love, in legacy. They understand that when you build from the eternal, even the temporary begins to align in your favor. When money comes from God, it teaches you how to see differently. You no longer measure success by comparison, but by obedience. You stop asking, "Am I ahead?" and start asking, "Am I aligned?" You realize that divine timing is not about speed, but about stability. The world runs fast, but the wise move deliberately. They build slowly, carefully, unshaken by the noise of trends, because they know that anything built without patience will eventually collapse. In time, you begin to appreciate the beauty of anonymity. You no longer crave the spotlight because you've found something better, peace of mind. You realize that not being seen is sometimes the greatest gift. In hiddenness, you hear clearer. In stillness, you grow deeper. The world may chase visibility, but you will chase clarity. You'll understand that the invisible hand guiding you is far more valuable than any visible crowd cheering you. And when people finally see your success and call it sudden, you'll smile quietly, knowing it wasn't sudden at all. It was built brick by brick, prayer by prayer, sacrifice by sacrifice. They will see the fruit, but they won't know the roots. They'll see the shine, but they'll never feel the silence that shaped it. That's why you'll never take credit, you'll take gratitude, because only you and God know the cost of your calm. As you keep walking this road, you'll learn to honor small beginnings as much as great outcomes. You'll stop waiting for one day and start living with purpose every day. You'll realize that wealth isn't waiting at the destination, it's being formed in the journey. Every act of patience, every moment of gratitude, every decision to stay quiet when you could have spoken, those are deposits in your spiritual account, and when life tests you again, and it will, you won't panic. You'll remember the same silence that carried you before. You'll know that the source never runs dry. You'll know that what comes from God cannot be stolen, only surrendered. And you will choose to hold it with open hands, because you understand that holding too tightly to a blessing turns it into a burden. So you keep walking, quietly powerful, humbly rich, inwardly at peace. You let your life be the sermon. You let your integrity be the evidence. You let your calm be the loudest sound in a noisy world. And in that silence, heaven will continue to speak, reminding you that when money comes from God, it was never just meant to bless your life. It was meant to transform your soul. And as your soul begins to transform, you realize that the greatest wealth you will ever hold is not in what you possess, but in what you've become. The external success was only the mirror. The internal change was always the mission. You see now that God was never simply trying to get money to you. He was trying to get wisdom into you. Because wealth without wisdom is like fire in the hands of a child. It may shine for a moment, but it soon destroys what it touches. But when the fire burns in a wise heart, it becomes light. It warms, it guides, it purifies. You begin to understand why the process took so long, why the waiting felt endless, why every door seemed to close just before you reached it. You see now that what you called delay was actually divine protection. You weren't being denied, you were being developed. If the blessing had come too soon, it would have broken you. But now, because your spirit has been refined, the weight of prosperity feels light in your hands. You can hold it without trembling because you've learned that true strength isn't loud, it's quiet control. When you operate from that place, your entire relationship with success changes. You no longer hustle out of fear. You no longer grind to prove your worth. You work with peace because your source is secure. You no longer chase people because divine alignment brings the right ones to you. You no longer seek to be understood because your purpose no longer depends on agreement. You finally realize that your job was never to convince anyone. It was to stay faithful to the assignment. As you walk in this new clarity, the noise of the world begins to lose its grip on you. You stop comparing your timeline to others. You stop worrying about what you haven't achieved yet. You begin to notice that the more you trust, the more things align without your interference. It's as if life begins to cooperate with you because you've stopped fighting it. You've surrendered not in weakness, but in wisdom. That's when you understand that surrender is not the end of control. It's the beginning of mastery. Money that comes from God carries a peace that no bank statement can measure. It comes without the anxiety of maintaining appearances. It doesn't demand that you become someone else to keep it. It doesn't steal your sleep or your joy. It multiplies quietly because it was never meant to be a performance. It was meant to be a partnership. And in that partnership, you learn that what you do with your blessing determines what happens next. You begin to invest differently, not just in markets or business, but in people, in principles, in purpose. You learn that the greatest return on investment isn't interest, it's influence. When you use what you've been given to lift others, you step into the highest form of prosperity. Because what you build for yourself dies with you, but what you build for others outlives you. And that's when wealth transcends numbers and becomes legacy. But legacy doesn't come through noise. It comes through consistency. It's not built in the moments when the world is watching. It's built in the moments when no one is. Every quiet act of integrity, every unspoken prayer of gratitude, every choice to do right when wrong would be easier, those are the building blocks of a legacy that time cannot erase. Divine wealth is always looking for character that can carry continuity. God doesn't just bless a moment, He blesses a mindset, and that mindset begins to change the way you see others. Instead of envy, you feel empathy. Instead of competition, you feel compassion. You realize that there's no scarcity in divine provision, only misalignment. The moment you understand that everyone has their appointed portion, jealousy loses its power. You no longer resent the success of others, because you know that what's meant for you will never miss you. That kind of peace cannot be taught, it must be experienced. Still, even as your peace deepens, new temptations will rise. You will face the urge to return to the old ways of proving, of showing, of seeking applause. But this time you'll recognize it for what it is, a test. Because the real test of divine money is not how you gain it, but how you handle it when it arrives. The world will try to pull you back into its rhythm of pride, but wisdom will whisper, "Stay low." You'll feel the tug to speak when silence would serve you better. You'll feel the urge to respond when restraint would protect you. That's when you'll know that wisdom has taken root. There will come moments when you will want to tell your story, to explain the miracle, to prove the divine hand behind your success. But you'll realize that not everyone deserves the full story. Some people wouldn't understand it even if you told them. Some would twist it, others would doubt it. So you'll smile instead, and let your results speak the truth that your words could never convey. You'll let your peace preach louder than your pride ever could. And as you live in that stillness, you'll start to notice the quiet power of discernment. You'll be able to sense which opportunities carry peace and which carry poison. You'll feel in your spirit when something looks good but isn't right. Divine wealth sharpens your perception. It gives you a wisdom that the world cannot counterfeit. You'll begin to see that not every open door leads to destiny. Some doors are distractions disguised as opportunities. And you'll learn to walk away without guilt, because peace will have become your compass. Your decisions will become slower but surer. You'll stop rushing to say yes. You'll realize that wisdom isn't just knowing what to do, it's knowing when not to. The world will label it caution, but heaven will call it maturity, and that maturity will begin to set you apart. Others will notice your calm in chaos, your focus in distraction, your patience in pressure. They'll think you have some secret, and they'll be right. The secret is that you finally understand who the real source is, and that understanding makes you unshakable. When divine wealth enters your life, it doesn't inflate your ego. It increases your empathy. You start to see people differently. You stop judging by status and start recognizing by spirit. You become more generous with grace because you remember what it felt like to be unseen. You treat the janitor with the same respect as the CEO because you no longer measure worth by title. That's what happens when money comes from God. It frees you from needing superiority to feel significant. Slowly, you begin to see how every season was connected. The struggle taught you humility, the waiting taught you patience, the blessing taught you stewardship. Every piece fit perfectly into a design you couldn't have drawn yourself. That's the beauty of divine orchestration. It doesn't waste pain, it refines it. It doesn't waste failure, it repurposes it. And once you see that, you stop resenting the process. You start thanking it. You'll begin to live differently, not just making money but making meaning. You'll no longer ask, how can I earn more? but how can I serve more? You'll start using your influence to open doors for others, to mentor, to guide, to lift. Because you'll remember that once someone's obedience opened a door for you. You'll understand that the most beautiful form of wealth is when your life becomes an answer to someone else's prayer. You'll learn that wisdom isn't about knowing everything. It's about knowing enough to listen. The wise don't talk to be heard. They speak to be useful. You'll begin to speak less and observe more, realizing that silence has a way of teaching what noise never could. And in that silence, you'll hear things that others miss, the quiet guidance of purpose, the subtle direction of intuition, the still voice that always leads you right. The more you follow that voice, the less you'll need external validation. Because once you're guided by peace, you stop being led by pressure. You'll find yourself walking away from deals that don't align, declining invitations that disturb your calm, and choosing stillness over status. The world may not understand, but you'll no longer need it to. You'll know that favor isn't about being everywhere, it's about being where you're meant to be. And through it all, you'll stay quiet, not out of fear, but out of reverence. Because now you understand that when money comes from God, silence is not secrecy. It's sanctity. You stay quiet because the weight of what you carry is too sacred to expose to careless words. You stay wise because you know that what you've been given is not just for today, it's for generations. You live with the awareness that you are not the owner, but the trustee of something eternal, and so you keep moving with that sacred calm, that unshakable peace, that divine wisdom that whispers louder than any applause. You build with humility, you give with intention, you live with grace. Because once you've experienced what it means for money to come from God, you'll never again confuse noise with power or attention with blessing. You'll understand that the quiet life of wisdom is not just richer, it's freer, fuller, and infinitely more divine.